So, welcome everybody to this month's Sage Integrative Health Lunch and Learn. Today, we're here with Rachel Alvarado. She is our expert in weight loss and nutritional coaching. I'm really excited to be here with her today. Rachel put together a really great presentation on how to really think about weight loss without thinking about so much on the calories. And we know there's a lot of calorie counters out there, and that's one of the big weight loss tools. But we're going to hear from Rachel about what she thinks on some of these things, and then we'll open it up for. Well, don't worry, we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So without further ado, I'm gonna pass it over to Rachel and give her full attention.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. Hey, guys. Let me go ahead. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and I have a little presentation, and then we will jump into questions. And you guys have already started asking such wonderful questions. So I'm so excited about that. Okay. All right. So like Wendy was saying, we're going to be talking about what's beyond counting calories? How do we lose weight beyond counting calories? So counting calories can be overwhelming for a lot of us. Now, I don't want to completely discredit counting calories because it does have, some good benefits, and it can be helpful. It can give us some data, but for a lot of us, it can also feel like too much work. And all of that work effort we have to put into counting calories can make weight loss seem unsustainable. So, when you do a weight loss program, you don't want to just, lose all the weight and then stop doing what you're doing and then gain it all back. What we want to do is we want to find long-term sustainable habits, and lifestyle changes so that you can lose the weight and completely keep it off. Okay, so then what do you want to focus on if you don't want to focus on counting calories? What you want to focus on is food quality, food timing, and feeding your soul. Okay, so let's jump into the food quality. And I'm going to start with this quote because I love it. So the important thing to remember about food labels is to avoid food labels, or excuse me, to avoid foods with labels. And that's by Dr. Joel Fuhrman. So getting down to the heart of that matter is that we really want to avoid hyper-processed foods. So hyper-processed foods work against us on so many levels. And to start to answer one of the first questions that was actually asked in the chat is when we're having these hyper-processed foods, that's really what leads to this feeling that we need to snack all the time. This, is really this kind of food addiction. Honestly, I think most people are dealing with some sort of food addiction, whether they acknowledge it or not. But this feeling that we have to constantly snack or eat these foods is really a product of hyper-processed foods. And being exposed to it, even if you're not eating it now, we can still have this need to get this big calorie rush from having previously eaten a lot of hyper-processed foods. Also, too, gosh, I was listening to a podcast recently with this reporter who was talking about hyper-processed foods. And she was saying that she was reporting that it's around 80 to 90% of the foods in a supermarket are hyper-processed. So they're really hard to avoid. But, the problem with them is they were engineered to kind of hijack our senses. So they're really high in fat and salt and sugar, and those all trigger our brains in ways that natural foods don't. And they give us this big dopamine hit. And they relax us. Like, have you ever been like stressed? Maybe you're stressed at work and then there's a piece of chocolate. You have the piece of chocolate and you're like, oh, and maybe it tastes good. And you're like, oh, it tastes good, but it's beyond tasting good. It relaxes you. It's like a chemical response. That's from this high level of, fat and sugar or fat and salt. Those are the two combinations that really hijack the brain. But the big thing too with these hyper processed foods is that they lack vital nutrients. So they might be really high in calories, but they're not going to be rich in micronutrients. And those are really important. So micronutrients are going to be your vitamins, your minerals, and other phytochemicals like antioxidants. They're also going to promote blood sugar dysregulation. So that's also going to be a big part of what's leading to snacking is you're going to get hit with a lot of calories into your bloodstream all at once, and then you get this big insulin spike, but then shortly after you get this blood sugar drop, and then you feel like you need to eat again. You feel like hangry. That's, that term. That is really more just blood sugar dysregulation that makes you want to constantly snack. And so that really leads to this vicious cycle. And honestly, too, being hungry and feeling full, it's actually a more dynamic process than we give it credit for. So okay, let's say we're hungry and we want to feel full. In order to feel full, there's a few things that need to happen. First of all, we do need calories. We do need those macronutrients in order for our body to feel satiated. So that is needed. However, our stomach has these stretch receptors. So we also need volume. So we really need lots of fiber in order for those stretch receptors to activate for us to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I do have volume in my stomach. It's good. Additionally, we need micronutrients. Again, that's going to be your vitamins, your minerals, and other phytochemicals. We need that for our bodies to work. So our bodies are like basically making constant chemical reactions. And in order to complete those chemical reactions, we need these vitamins for a lot of them at their coenzymes. And so we need these vitamins in order for our bodies to function properly. So unless we are getting calories and we're getting the volume, fiber is where most of that volume is going to come in a good form, and then we're getting that micronutrients, we're never being fully satisfied. So then let's say we're eating some chips. The chips are going to be high in calories, but we're never triggering the stretch receptors unless we eat way too many, which a lot of times people do, right? But on the serving sizes that they list on the packages, that will never activate the stretch receptors, right? And especially if we're coupling it with other foods that are also low in fiber, we're not getting that stretch receptor unless we're way overeating on the calories. But then we're also not getting those micronutrients, those vitamins and those minerals and antioxidants and other things that help our body function. So then our body is never truly satisfied with all of those things. And so that is part of what leads to all of these kind of unhealthy eating patterns is really it stems from a lot of these hyper processed foods. So what do we eat? We want to eat whole natural foods. So asking yourself, can I find this food in nature? And if it is a food that has a package on it, look at the label and read the ingredient list. Do you know what the ingredients are? Pretty simple. So we obviously want fewer amount of ingredients and we want to be able to know what they are. And if we know what they are and there's not tons of ingredients, then it's less likely that it's a hyper processed food. Okay, so what do we want to focus on? We want to focus on whole natural foods. And this is going to be a lot of focusing on getting in your fruits and your veggies daily. And also too, like if you are feeling really overwhelmed with the whole weight loss process and where you want to start, which, I talk to people and they're like, I want to do something, but every aspect of it seems overwhelming. Then I say, start with this. Don't even start with removing those foods yet. The unhealthy foods, start with adding in the good. Start with getting your body that, what it needs, that raw material, like the vitamins, the minerals, those phytochemicals, in all that fiber. And when we are dedicating ourselves to being like, I am going to get a large serving of leafy greens every day, and I'm going to get, 2 servings of fruit every day, that does start to crowd out space so that we're not able to have as much room for some of those unhealthy foods. So that can be a good strategy, but it's also helping our body work on a better level. And because these whole natural foods are rich in fiber and micronutrients, we're getting satisfied on them on a deeper level. It's also giving us more stable energy. So we're not getting these big blood sugar swings, which are going to promote wanting to snack between meals and stuff like that as well. Which leads me to food timing. So, another really important part about weight loss is when we eat. And this always amazes me, excuse me, how important food timing is. Sometimes people are like, okay, I really need to scale it back to something that feels manageable. So, what we'll start to do is just structure when they eat. Even in this, people will still lose weight, um, without even changing what they're eating sometimes. Now, obviously, that's going to depend on person to person, but this is really important, the food timing. So when to eat. So you wanna have 3 meals a day, and you wanna go about 3 to 4 hours between breakfast and lunch and dinner, and you don't wanna snack between those meals, which can seem really daunting. But if you are eating these whole natural foods and you're avoiding these hyper processed foods, that's going to make not snacking much, much easier. And then you're going to want to fast for about 12 to 13 hours between when you finish dinner to when you have breakfast. This is really hard for people because a lot of people do struggle with snacking after dinner. And for that, you're going to want to, avoid those cues or that trigger you to want to snack. So if you eat dinner and then you clean up the kitchen and then you're going to go watch something, and then that means you go back to the kitchen and you start getting snack foods, then don't go watch something. Or maybe, go to upstairs away from the kitchen and watch your show there. Or when the weather's warmer, go for an evening walk and actually physically remove yourself from the kitchen and those triggers that make you want to snack then. Or work on a puzzle, or, find another activity that you can do that's not snacking. But this going 12 to 13 hours without eating between when you finish dinner to when you have breakfast is really important because that gives your body this downtime. First of all, it allows for you to go into a deeper level of detoxification, cleaning out your body. But then it's also when your insulin levels are the lowest. And in order to use your stored energy, your fat in your body, you need to have your insulin levels down. You need to take a break from actively digesting in order to metabolize the fat in your body and use that. So if we're constantly eating, we're never giving ourselves the opportunity to lose weight. So by having these little breaks throughout the day and especially overnight, that allows our body to access our stored fat and use that. Now, you also want to be really careful because 0-calorie foods and drinks can still count as eating because your body still has to metabolize it. So the big example here is diet soda. So if you are having diet soda, then you are not fasting, or you are not, that's going to count also as like a snack between a meal. Okay. Because even though it's 0 calories, it still creates an insulin response and your body has to metabolize it. And so it completely, blocks the whole benefits of fasting and not snacking. So that's really important. You can have like herbal tea with nothing in it, or green tea, black tea, or even black coffee. That's fine too. That's not going to interrupt your fast. And then also a bonus, if you have your larger meal of the day as lunch instead of dinner, that will also be advantageous to not only promoting your health, but weight loss. Okay, so the other aspect of this too is to feed your soul. So when we cultivate a life we love, we are not then having to use food to escape, and obviously we're still going to have to deal with stresses in life. And so we can never completely eliminate those. But we want to make sure that our life is filled with all of these activities and that we have these habits set up that increase our joy so that we're not looking to only food to give us that joy. Okay. And I really do believe that eating well and joy have this beautiful synergistic relationship. When we eat well, we feel well. When we eat well, we have more energy. And then when we're feeling well, and we have more energy, then we're able to do these activities. And a lot of times we also have more confidence. And so we take a little bit more risk and putting ourselves out there and trying more things. And then that gives us more joy. And then when we're having more fun and more joy in life, we're filling up life with all of these activities and things that we love. And then that means we want to eat well because we want to continue to feel well. And so, it's self-perpetuating and it's really beautiful and it's really wonderful. But if we want to eat well, we can also tap into, okay, well, what are these things that are going to bring me joy? So yeah, we want to focus on getting in those salads every day and not snacking. But then also, what are these activities that we can do that I can go ahead and start incorporating in my life that are going to make me happier? you know and I love this quote: take care of your body, it's the only place you have to live. And I really think this whole aspect of the weight loss program that we have set up is set up for this. So it's not so that you can get on the scale and the scale say a certain number. It's not about that number. What it's about is feeling good in your body, because this is our body that we have. This is our instrument for living, having this human experience. And so we want to feel our best in it, so that we can have the best experiences we can. Okay, so feed your soul, nourish your body. Think about these activities that can bring you joy. So I always think these questions are really great questions to reflect on. And then these answers can act as kind of like your North Star for when you're deciding how to structure your life. What is the direction you want to move toward? And so, what activities outside of food bring you joy? Pickleball. And it also could be like dancing. It could be just hanging out with friends. It doesn't have to be physically active. It can be reading, joining a book club. It can be all sorts of different things. It can be physically active, but it doesn't have to be physically active. It just has to be something that makes you happy and feel joy. All right. And then other questions: what experiences do you want to have in life? Because again, our bodies are here as our instruments for living this life. So that's why we want to take care of it. And that's why we want to feel our best. And then what do you want your future to look like? And then how can you get there? And so those are questions to start you building your roadmap for building this life you love, and being your healthiest, best feeling self. Okay. So like I said, we do have a weight loss program. If you're interested about that, feel free to go and set up a discovery call. And then I am going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and we can answer
Yes.
all
So,
these
Rachel,
questions.
thank you so much. This is such a great overview on all of this. So, I think we've had a lot of really good questions rolling in. And let me find for today. Do you want to kind of go to some of the ones here? Do you want? I'll let you
Yeah.
pick and choose off the list which ones you're going to address first.
Yeah. Okay. So there are, okay, so many great questions. So, what do I think about the weight loss meds? Fabulous question, and something that we're constantly hearing about, right? So obviously there have been some benefits to these medications, just because being overweight can lead to so many health problems. So addressing that and addressing overeating can have these benefits, right? However, we do not understand the long-term effects of a lot of these medications. They're very new, so there are going to be risk in play. Also, too, what happens when you stop taking the medication? If we don't learn how to eat and how to work with our bodies with these foods that we're eating, then do we constantly have to be taking this a very expensive medication long term that we don't know the long term effects. In fact, somewhere I was hearing, and I did not look into this deeper, so don't take my word for it, but I was hearing in talk there may be being a link to some thyroid cancers. Now, I don't know if that is fully established, and my guess is that there will need to be a lot more studies, but medication is like pulling the tail of the dragon. It can be beneficial, but it can cause something else to go on, right? It's not getting to the root cause of the issue. But not to say that there might be some benefits. Like if you're very overweight and diabetic and you're having all of these health problems due to it, yeah, it might be worth it for you, but it's not going to be nearly as good as actually getting to the root problem and learning to use the foods that serve you and help you long term.
Yeah, such a good
Um,
discussion about medication too, because I think
mm,
it can seem like an easy fix, right?
mhm,
Because the weight might peel off a little faster with the meds, but is it sustainable?
mhm,
And what are the long-term effects on the body? So we really want to weigh, yes, when you go through full weight loss, I mean the weight can come off very quickly regardless, but the medication is also changing chemistry in the body. And we have to be very careful when we're starting to change the biochemistry of our body from a medication. So these are very important things to weigh when we're making decisions to go that route.
exactly, exactly. And like I was talking, like our body is this instrument for living life. Like we don't want to then end up harming it so that we can't have the quality of life we want long term.
Exactly.
How does that give us?
Exactly.
I
Yep.
also
Thank
love
you,
this.
Myra. Great question.
Yeah, that was fabulous. I also love this question. When you lose weight, what are you losing? Are you losing fat, toxins, etc.? Yes, and yes.
Mhm.
So when you lose weight, you will always lose a little bit of muscle and a little bit of fat. Fat, also, you will be losing toxins as well. So fat holds toxins for all animals. It holds toxins. So that also means too, like if you're eating a fatty piece of meat, you're also eating the toxins that that animal was exposed to. um, so something to think about. But when you are losing weight, that's also too one of the important things about having good nutrition while you are losing weight and supporting your detoxification pathways by eating lots of fruits and vegetables. Because when you are losing that weight, yes, those toxins are being released and your body is processing them out. So, great question. You also, every time you lose weight too, you're also going to be losing a little bit of muscle mass. It's just the way the body is. So, obviously, you want to continue to do activities that help maintain your muscle mass a little bit. But that's also why you want to really get to the root issues and start losing weight in a sustainable way, because when you gain weight, you're just gaining fat. And so
Mhm.
that is really where yo-yo dieting can be extremely problematic. Well, it could be problematic for several reasons, but that's one of it, because then you lose a little bit of muscle, but then if you gain it back, then you're only gaining fat. And that's really problematic, and the importance of sustained weight loss.
Yeah, and going back to your point about the toxins, it's one of the reasons that we have a unique program at Sage is we have the weight loss coupled with the functional medicine side. We want to make sure that whenever weight loss is happening, that we're checking your body, metabolic processes. We're making sure that your body's properly detoxifying, making sure there aren't any underlying issues. So you will have the opportunity, if you were to work with us on the weight loss program, to work with Rachel with weight loss coaching and all of her amazing weekly support and beyond weekly. And then you get teamed up with one of our functional medicine providers that will be checking in with you monthly to make sure everything's a-okay and to work on any underlying imbalances, gut issues, hormonal imbalances, cortisol imbalances.
Mhm.
So that's one of the unique things that our program offers, because we want to make sure that everything's safe, your body's tip top, and all the areas are addressed properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is why I love this program so much, because it is a dynamic program that addresses all of these areas so that you can feel your best. I think that's really important. Um, Here's a question. How much honey can we eat without gaining weight? What about dates and other natural sweeteners? Good question. Honey is like eating sugar. Yeah, the sweet little bees made it, but glycemically speaking, it is the exact same as just eating sugar. It's moderately better than just white table sugar because it's not as hyperprocessed. But absolutely, it's going to spike your insulin. It's going to lead to weight loss. How much can you have without gaining weight? That's a really personal question and something that would be very individual to person. But honestly, If you want to lose weight, you got to cut out sweeteners, or at least find a way to limit it. And again, that's going to depend on you. We would want to look at your particular habits and see, like, okay, what if you put a little bit of honey in your tea every once in a while? What does that look like? Everyone's going to be a little bit different. Honey is just sugar. Dates are kind of the exception. I mean, they're very high in sugar, but dates are a whole food where it has the fiber with it. So a lot of the negative benefits or the negative consequences from sugar can be avoided with dates. At the same time, you don't want to overdo dates. And again, that's going to vary from person to person, and what your health overall health is and your activity level and things like that. But dates, I would say, are like the one good ones. That's what I do my desserts with, is I'll cook with just dates. But then at the same time too, you want to make sure you're not overdoing it. And again, that's going to look different from person to person. But then basically agave, maple syrup, it's all just sugar. And it's going to act just the same as sugar and can interfere with the weight loss program if you are still incorporating that. It also turns on this, I call it like a sugar switch or a sweet switch. If we are really prone to overeating or, using food in that way, or, sugar addictions, having a little bit of sweet, even like stevia, can trigger that and turn that switch on and make us just want crave more sweet stuff, which can really just be sabotaging. So that is something that can interfere and again would need to be addressed individually depending on that person. Um, So yeah, snacking. So why would a person who is eating a whole natural food still feel a strong urge to snack? Is that urge to snack also psychological? Absolutely. Um, it is. It's multifaceted. So also too, like if we have had these hyper processed foods, these really high calorie foods, it floods your bloodstream, but it also changes your brain and how your brain responds to that. And we get used to that and we crave that. So if we've had that and before, it can also, having that experience also kind of rewires your brain and what it wants. I know. It's unfortunate, but you can move past it. It still might be there in the background, but you can find ways where it doesn't control you. I used to have absolutely food addiction, like overate hyper-processed foods, had terrible cravings, and it was like, honestly, like if I could get over it, anyone can get over it. But it does take some work, but there was rewiring done in my brain from those years of doing that. So now I do have to be mindful, like, oh, I just can't keep nuts around it because then I'll snack on that because I just have this, desire within me for these high calorie foods. And, that's just kind of where I am. So I have to set myself up for success that way. But when I set my environment up for success and I've, focused on these other foods, um, and bringing more joy in my day-to-day life, I'm able to curb that. So it's not like this huge battle I'm having every day, but it is something I have to be mindful that I can't fall back into that habit.
And
Okay.
also too with
Mhm,
sugar, sugar cravings sometimes it is psychological because it does trigger that dopamine response in the body, gives you that
mhm,
it's that happy feeling.
mhm.
But also sometimes sugar cravings come from other critters in our body. So candida and or any fungi or bacteria that are of certain species will also crave sugar. So we might be getting signals to our brain to eat sugar just so those microorganisms can be fed. So we might need to assess to make sure there isn't any kind of imbalance in our microbiome. And so that's something that's really important to consider with cravings, sugar cravings particularly.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. I had this client I was working with, and she had terrible sugar addiction. And so we worked on all this stuff. And then when she was working with Dr. Romig, um, she was able to take care of, her gut microbiome and this like yeast overgrowth. And it was like within a few weeks, her sugar cravings just plummeted. It was amazing. So it's like, are you craving it or is something else craving it?
Something else might be craving it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Great.
Absolutely.
We'll do one more question, then we'll do a wrap up.
Okay, yeah. Does fasting detox the body? It does. So absolutely it does because and it's really amazing. So when we eat something, right after we eat, we're in the anabolic state, and then we move into the catabolic state. And it's that catabolic state where we're no longer putting all of this active energy into actively digesting that allows our body to go through this deeper detoxification. Additionally, your insulin levels are coming down, so you're able to use your stored energy, your stored fat, which is storing toxins. So then your body is processing that, and so you're detoxing that way. Again, you want to make sure you're eating well during this process to support that detoxification. But something else completely amazing happens when you're fasting is something called autophagy starts to ramp up. And autophagy is where your body cleans out damaged cells, so particularly immune cells. It cleans out the damaged cells and recycles it for parts. And so people will notice when they're doing these fasting, not only are they detoxing, but they're reducing their inflammation because their body is able to go through such a deeper level of repair by especially ramping up this autophagy. So yes, you detox and you help your body in wonderful ways by giving it a break from actively digesting. So yeah,
Great.
I
All
think
right, awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was such a great chat, Rachel. Thank you for an amazing presentation. So Rachel is on our team here. She specializes in the weight loss counseling, and we do have programs that you can look into. If you wanted to schedule a 15-minute free phone consultation with Rachel, go ahead and jump on our calendar at sageintegrativehealth.com. And she'll be happy to chat with you. And also for anyone here today, we are offering a 20% discount on the first month in the program. So be sure to include that in your note that you were at our webinar today. And we'll be sure to get that discount set up for you when you sign up with us. So without further ado, again, we had such a pleasure hanging out with all of you today. You had amazing questions. Rachel, thank you. And stay tuned for more sessions with all of us. And be sure to check out our Sage Integrative Health YouTube channel for all of our back issues.
great.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thank you guys.